The alien ship Zorithus cut through the dark expanse of space, its sleek surface reflecting the distant stars. A soft hum filled the ship as it hurtled toward Earth, a planet that had caught the attention of the galactic explorers. Lyra Xenth, the leader of this advanced alien crew, stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the blue planet below. Her species, the Zorithians, were known across the galaxy for their technological prowess. They had studied countless worlds, conquered unthinkable distances in space, and had learned to control nature in ways no one else could. But Earth was different. Lyra's hand hovered over the console as she read the mission data. The humans, with their primitive tools, were no match for the aliens' sophisticated technology. Still, there was something about Earth that intrigued her. The planet was teeming with life, and the human race, though young by galactic standards, was more resilient than any species she had encountered. As the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Lyra turned to her crew. "Prepare the containment nets and energy traps. We will capture the apex predator. Bring it back for study," she ordered. The crew nodded in unison. Their mission was clear: to capture and study Earth's most dangerous creature, an 8-meter-tall, hulking beast that roamed the wildest parts of the planet. The apex predator, as they called it, was a terrifying mix of pure muscle and raw power, enhanced by cybernetic implants. To the untrained eye, it was a mindless killer, but Lyra knew there was more to the creature than met the eye. The Zorithus descended rapidly toward the Earth's surface. The ship's cloaking technology kept it hidden from human detection, but the crew could still see the vast, untamed wilderness below. Dense forests, towering mountains, and uncharted plains spread out before them. This was the apex predator's home. The alien squad, equipped with advanced weapons and high-tech gadgets, suited up and prepared to descend. The stakes were high. The aliens had to capture the creature alive for study, but they knew it wouldn't be easy. The beast had survived the harshest environments on Earth, and it had done so for a reason. It was unstoppable. The air was thick with tension as the squad made their descent. They moved swiftly and silently through the dense forest, their advanced cloaking devices making them nearly invisible to the naked eye. The trees loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the ground. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. They had to get close to the predator without alerting it. As they neared their target, Lyra's voice came through the communication device. "Stay alert. We don't know how the creature will react to our presence." The team nodded in acknowledgement, eyes scanning the dense forest ahead. Then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The trees shook, and a low growl echoed through the air. There it was. The apex predator appeared from the shadows of the trees, its massive body moving with terrifying speed. Its eyes glowed red, and its teeth, sharp as daggers, snapped hungrily. The creature's muscular frame rippled with cybernetic enhancements, making it appear both terrifying and unnatural. The Zorithian squad raised their weapons, preparing to subdue the beast with advanced energy weapons and traps. But even as the team deployed their high-tech nets, the apex predator was too fast. With a single swipe of its claw, it tore through the net, sending sparks flying into the air. The alien weapons barely made a dent in its hide, their energy blasts fizzling against the beast's thick armor. The creature's growls grew louder, its anger building as it lashed out at the aliens. One by one, the team members were knocked back by the brute force of the beast. A powerful energy bolt from the predator's claws sent a Zorithian soldier flying across the clearing, landing in a heap on the ground. Lyra's heart raced. This was not going according to plan. The technology they had brought to Earth, some of the most advanced in the galaxy, was no match for the beast's raw power. They had underestimated it. Another member of the squad fired a high-powered laser, aiming directly at the creature's head. The beam hit its target, but the apex predator didn't even flinch. It snarled, spinning around to face the aliens with a ferocity that took their breath away. "Fall back," Lyra ordered. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of panic in it. The situation was quickly spiraling out of control. If they couldn't capture the beast now, the entire mission would fail. But then, just as it seemed all hope was lost, a figure emerged from the shadows. Ethan Kane. The human soldier stood in the distance, silhouetted against the dimming light of the setting sun. His rugged frame was immediately visible, his dark hair fluttering in the wind. Unlike the Zorathians, Ethan wasn't armed with anything more than a basic utility kit. He wore simple gear, a tactical vest, and cargo pants. Nothing flashy, nothing alien. The Zorathians froze. What was a human doing here? How had he gotten so close to the apex predator without being detected? Ethan stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the creature. He didn't seem afraid. He didn't even flinch when the beast roared, its red eyes locking onto him. Instead, Ethan remained perfectly still, his posture relaxed but focused. The alien squad watched in stunned silence. What was this human doing? Didn't he see the danger? The apex predator had taken down their most advanced technology with ease. What could a human possibly do? Ethan raised his hand slowly, his eyes never leaving the creature. He spoke softly, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Easy, big guy. It's okay." The beast stopped in its tracks. The growling ceased. The humans and aliens alike watched in shock. How could this be happening? The apex predator, an unstoppable force of nature, was listening to this human. Ethan took another step forward. He spoke to the beast in a low, soothing tone. His movements were slow, deliberate. He wasn't trying to challenge the predator. He was connecting with it. The aliens couldn't believe their eyes. Lyra's jaw dropped. She had never seen anything like this before. Their technology had failed. But this human, he wasn't using weapons. He wasn't using advanced alien technology. He was using something else, something far more powerful than any technology they had at their disposal. The creature, slowly but surely, lowered its massive head, its glowing red eyes softening. Its breathing slowed, and it seemed to calm under Ethan's steady gaze. The apex predator, a being that had terrified entire worlds, was now listening to a human. The Zorathians couldn't understand it. How was this possible? They had underestimated humanity. They had underestimated Ethan Kane. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving the creature. He extended his hand, palm up, toward the apex predator. The moment felt surreal, like time itself had frozen. The beast, now under his command, took a cautious step forward. Ethan didn't flinch. He simply stood there, his presence commanding the animal's respect. For a moment, everything was still. The only sound was the gentle rustle of the leaves in the wind. And then, without warning, the apex predator bowed its head, as if acknowledging Ethan's dominance. The Zorathian squad was silent. They had seen many things in their time, but nothing like this. A human, a primitive being by their standards, had just done what their most advanced technology could not. Ethan Kane had tamed the apex predator. Lyra's eyes locked onto Ethan. She had 1,000 questions, but one thing was clear. This human was no ordinary soldier. And Earth was not the primitive planet she had believed it to be. As the tension in the clearing melted away, Lyra's voice came through, barely a whisper. This isn't possible. But it had just happened. And now, the Zorathians would have to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humanity. After the shocking display of Ethan's ability to tame the apex predator, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The Zorathian team, still in disbelief, looked at each other with wide eyes, trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. The mighty cybernetically enhanced beast, a creature that had torn through their technology without hesitation, had submitted to a human. Ethan Kane, a mere human soldier, had managed to calm the beast with nothing more than his presence. The thought was almost impossible for them to comprehend. Lyra Xenth, the leader of the Zorathian crew, was the first to speak, though her voice was laced with disbelief. She stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she scrutinized Ethan from head to toe. "Explain yourself," she demanded, her voice stern. "How did you do that? What technology did you use?" Ethan stood tall, his face calm but his eyes holding an air of quiet confidence. "I didn't use any technology," he replied, his voice steady and clear. "I didn't use weapons either. I relied on something you can't measure or control with your advanced gadgets." The aliens, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, exchanged puzzled glances. Lyra, clearly not satisfied with the answer, pressed further. "So you claim that you tamed the apex predator with just your presence? You expect me to believe that?" Ethan didn't flinch. He was used to people doubting him. He knew the Zorathians, with their advanced technology and superior knowledge, wouldn't understand. But he also knew that if he wanted them to see the truth, he'd have to show them. The aliens might believe humans to be primitive, but Ethan was determined to prove otherwise. "I understand why you don't believe me," Ethan said, his voice calm and assured. "You think humans are primitive, don't you? You think we're nothing more than weak creatures who rely on brute force. But we're more than that. We have something you don't. An instinctual connection to nature, to life itself." The Zorathians stood in stunned silence. Ethan's words hung in the air, their meaning sinking in. Lyra's expression hardened, her skepticism still evident. "So you're saying that you, a human, tamed the most dangerous creature on Earth using nothing more than your instincts? Preposterous." Ethan met her gaze, unyielding. "I'm saying we are more than what you think. And if you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you." He paused for a moment, letting the tension build. The team of Zorathians waited for him to continue, their eyes locked on the human before them. Ethan's next words hit them like a challenge. "I'll tame the beast again. This time, under controlled conditions. You can set up any test you want. If I succeed, you'll have to admit that humans are far more capable than you give us credit for." Lyra's eyes flashed with both curiosity and doubt. She had never met a human like this before, one who was so confident in their abilities. She turned to her crew, giving a sharp nod. "Prepare the test area," she ordered. "We'll see if your claims hold up in a more controlled environment. We will not be fooled again." Within minutes, the team moved into action. They worked quickly to set up a high-tech test area designed to ensure that the apex predator could not escape. The area was enclosed by a massive AI-controlled cage, built with state-of-the-art materials that could withstand even the most powerful blows. The cage was surrounded by hidden traps, designed to neutralize any threats and prevent the predator from fleeing. Lyra and her team watched closely, confident in their technology. The traps were equipped with precision weapons, AI-controlled nets, and even electromagnetic pulses that could disable any creature's movements. The test area was foolproof, in their minds. Nothing could go wrong. Ethan, however, wasn't worried. He had already tamed the beast once. And now, with the stakes even higher, he was ready to show the Zorathians that their technology, no matter how advanced, could never match the raw power of human connection with the world around them. The apex predator was brought into the test area. It thrashed and roared in fury, its red eyes glowing with rage. Its massive body heaved as it tried to break free from the control of the Zorathians, who held tight to their high-tech equipment, hoping it would be enough to subdue the beast. Ethan stepped forward into the cage. His heart beat steadily in his chest, but his mind was calm. He didn't need the technology. He didn't need weapons. What he needed was his instinct, his ability to connect with the creature on a primal level. He focused all his attention on the beast in front of him, the massive creature that had been both his challenge and his test. The Zorathian team watched closely, their eyes sharp, ready for any sign of failure. The AI systems in the cage clicked on, and the electromagnetic fields hummed with energy, ensuring the predator would not escape. Lyra's eyes flickered between the control panel and Ethan, her fingers tapping impatiently on her communicator as she kept track of every movement. "Begin the test," Lyra ordered, her voice filled with anticipation. Ethan's voice, however, remained calm and soothing. "Easy now. I know you're scared. I'm not here to hurt you." The apex predator stopped its thrashing for a moment, its wild eyes narrowing. It seemed to pause, as if considering Ethan's words. The massive creature's breath slowed, its fury subsiding ever so slightly. Ethan's presence, his calm, unwavering focus, had already started to make a difference. The Zorathian crew remained silent, watching in disbelief as the human continued to approach the beast. They were waiting for something to go wrong. They were waiting for the human to fail, to prove their superiority. Ethan took another step forward, and the creature shifted, its eyes now locked onto his. The eye-controlled traps around the cage clicked, ready to activate at the slightest sign of aggression from the beast. But Ethan wasn't worried. He didn't even flinch when the predator growled low in its throat. Instead, he spoke again, his tone gentle but firm. "You don't have to fight me. I'm not your enemy." For a brief moment, it felt like time stood still. The predator's intense gaze softened, the tension between them evaporating as it seemed to recognize the bond Ethan was forming with it. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She could see the change happening in front of her eyes. The predator, once an unstoppable force of destruction, was now yielding to a human. Ethan continued his slow, steady approach. He raised his hand, palm facing the creature. It was an invitation, a sign of trust. The beast hesitated for a moment before lowering its massive head, acknowledging Ethan's dominance, but in a way that suggested mutual respect. The Zorathian team was completely silent now, their disbelief growing with each passing second. Ethan wasn't just taming the beast, he was connecting with it on a level they didn't understand. There was no technology, no weapons, no advanced equipment involved. It was simply human instinct and empathy. Lyra, still trying to process what she was witnessing, spoke in a low voice. "This is impossible," she muttered to herself. But it was happening. Ethan had proven his point. The apex predator, a creature that had terrified them all, was now standing before him, calm and controlled. The Zorathian team couldn't believe their eyes. The human had won. The atmosphere inside the high-tech test arena was thick with tension. The Zorathian team stood behind the observation glass, their eyes fixed on the massive apex predator that had been released into the heart of the arena. The beast, a towering 8-meter monster with cybernetic enhancements, was on edge. Its red eyes gleamed with fury as it prowled the boundaries of its cage, sensing that it was no longer confined. Lyra Xenth, the alien leader, stood at the control station, her fingers hovering above the buttons that controlled the arena's automated systems. The Zorathian team was confident that their technology would be enough to stop the beast if it became too aggressive. But they were also watching Ethan closely. Would the human fail in the face of the creature's rage? Or could he really tame it again, this time under the watchful eyes of their technology? As the final gate lifted, the apex predator charged forward, roaring in fury. It immediately began testing the defenses, smashing into walls, triggering hidden traps, and trying to break free from the eye-controlled systems. Automated weapons deployed from every corner of the arena. Lasers fired, nets shot out, and electric shockwaves surged through the air. It was clear that the predator had no intention of being captured without a fight. Lyra smiled to herself, believing that this time, the beast would defeat Ethan. After all, no one could outsmart their technology, especially when facing a creature like the apex predator. She had seen humans fail countless times before, and she had no reason to believe this time would be different. But then, Ethan stepped forward into the arena, his face calm as ever, despite the chaos around him. He didn't rush. He didn't react to the predator's rage. He simply stood there, observing, waiting. The Zorathian team watched him closely, their eyes narrowing. What was he doing? Was he just going to let the creature come at him? The predator charged at full speed, its massive body a blur of power and fury. The moment it lunged towards Ethan, a series of traps triggered. Energy barriers shot up, and a large laser cannon activated, aiming directly at the human. The Zorathian team held their breath, waiting to see if Ethan would be destroyed. But Ethan didn't panic. Instead, with a quick roll to the side, he dodged the blast from the cannon, narrowly avoiding the deadly beam. In a fluid motion, he sprinted toward the nearest obstacle, a large pillar in the center of the arena. The predator followed, relentless, its claws scraping against the ground as it hunted its prey. The automated traps activated again, and lasers filled the air. But Ethan wasn't just running, he was thinking. As the predator closed in, Ethan ducked behind a large structure, letting the creature's speed carry it past him. In the same motion, Ethan dove into the control panel of the automated defense system, ripping off a few wires and triggering a malfunction in the AI's targeting system. The traps, now offline, lost their accuracy and began firing randomly, creating a momentary advantage for Ethan. Lyra watched in growing disbelief. The human was systematically avoiding every trap, every weapon, and outsmarting the very technology they had put in place to ensure the beast's containment. How is this possible? Lyra muttered under her breath. But there was no time for hesitation. The apex predator turned around and lunged again, furious. This time, it was even faster, angrier, and more unpredictable. The air seemed to vibrate with the creature's force as it charged straight for Ethan. At that moment, the close-quarters combat began. Ethan stood his ground, his back to the edge of the arena. There was no more room to run, no more time to dodge. The predator was right in front of him, and the air was thick with the scent of danger. The creature's claws lashed out, but Ethan was ready. He sidestepped, using the predator's own momentum against it, pushing it off balance with a powerful shove. The predator stumbled, but quickly regained its footing. It roared and lunged again, this time aiming for Ethan's throat. The Zorathian team held their breath, expecting the human to be torn apart in seconds. But Ethan was faster. In a move that seemed almost too quick to be human, he ducked low and grabbed the predator's arm as it passed. Using his strength and quick thinking, Ethan twisted the beast's arm and brought it to the ground with a resounding crash. The Zorathian team gasped in shock. This was no longer just a test of strength. It was a battle of wits, a battle of survival. The predator had underestimated the human, just as Lyra had. But now, Ethan was in control. The creature roared again, its eyes burning with rage, but it had already lost some of its fight. Ethan didn't stop. He continued to use his patience and calm connection with the animal to guide it. He didn't need to overpower the predator with sheer force. Instead, he used every move to communicate with it on a deeper level. Slowly but surely, the beast's aggression began to subside, and it began to recognize that Ethan wasn't an enemy. But just when it seemed that Ethan had won, a new challenge arose. The Zorathian AI systems malfunctioned, sending rogue robots into the arena. These robots had been programmed to assist in controlling the predator, but with the systems offline, they became unpredictable. Their circuits overloaded, and they began attacking everything in sight, including Ethan. One of the robots, a massive drone armed with bladed arms, shot toward Ethan. Its weapons aimed directly at him. Without hesitation, Ethan ducked and spun to the side, narrowly avoiding the drone's strike. But the robot wasn't alone. More came, each armed with energy weapons and razor-sharp blades. The arena had turned into a chaotic battleground. Ethan's calm, measured movements now became a blur of quick reflexes and improvised tactics. He grabbed a fallen piece of debris and used it to block the incoming laser beams from the robot. In an instant, he flipped over a fallen wreckage, landing directly behind one of the rogue robots. With one swift motion, he ripped its power core out, sending it crashing to the ground in a heap of sparks. The other robots, seeing their ally fall, closed in on Ethan from all sides. But Ethan wasn't done yet. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was proving a point. Every move he made was a testament to the power of human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and determination. With his back against the wall, Ethan kicked one of the robot's legs out from under it, sending it crashing to the ground. He followed up by using its own momentum to take down the next robot, then the next. His movements were quick and precise. His hand-to-hand combat was nothing short of expert. The Zorathian team watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this before. The human was not just surviving in the arena, he was thriving. He was taking on their technology, their weapons, and winning. As the last of the rogue robots fell, Ethan turned back to the apex predator. It was standing there, watching him, its fiery rage gone, replaced with a grudging respect. Ethan extended his hand, and the beast, surprisingly, took a step forward. Slowly, the creature lowered its head in acknowledgement. The fight was over. The arena was quiet for a moment, the dust settling after the chaos that had unfolded. The apex predator, now calm after Ethan's careful handling, stood still, its massive form towering over the battlefield. Ethan, breathing heavily from his encounter with the rogue robots, wiped the sweat from his forehead. It seemed like victory was in his grasp, and the Zorathian team, still in shock, was beginning to realize that the human was no ordinary soldier. But before anyone could speak or react, a low, menacing growl rumbled through the air. Ethan's eyes narrowed, and he turned toward the apex predator, noticing that its behavior had shifted. The creature was becoming agitated once again, its muscles tensing, its claws twitching. Something wasn't right. The Zorathians quickly exchanged uneasy glances. Lyra Xenth, standing at the control station, observed with growing concern. It was then that they all realized the beast had been tampered with. The Zorathians' advanced technology had interfered with the creature's mind, and now it was unstable. This was no longer just a test, it was an emergency. With a terrifying roar, the apex predator snapped its head toward the Zorathian squad. In a burst of strength, the creature lunged at them, its cybernetic claws slashing through the air. It was no longer the tame beast they had hoped to control. It was a dangerous and unpredictable force. The Zorathians scrambled to escape its fury, but their attempts were futile. The creature's rampage was unstoppable. Lyra, visibly shaken, quickly began issuing commands to her team. She didn't have time to explain, only to act. The situation was spiraling out of control. But just as she was about to give the order to subdue the beast, a loud boom echoed across the battlefield. The rogue faction of the Zorathians, who had been secretly working against her, activated their cloaking devices and launched a surprise attack. The air shimmered as cloaked Zorathian soldiers and robots appeared from seemingly nowhere. The rogue faction soldiers were armed with advanced weaponry, their guns crackling with energy as they fired upon both Lyra's forces and the apex predator. It was clear the rogue Zorathians had been planning this for a long time. They had tampered with the creature to cause chaos and destroy Lyra's team. Ethan didn't hesitate. His instincts kicked in, and he immediately began running toward the apex predator, which was still on a rampage. But now, his focus wasn't just on taming the creature. It was about survival. The rogue Zorathians, with their superior technology and cloaked positions, were everywhere. They had the element of surprise, and their advanced eye-controlled drones began flying overhead, unleashing a barrage of laser fire. But Ethan was no ordinary soldier. As the explosions rained down, he darted toward a nearby structure for cover. His military training kicked in as he strategically moved from cover to cover, dodging incoming fire and closing the distance between him and the predator. The Zorathian rogue soldiers had underestimated him, but they wouldn't make that mistake twice. Lyra, still coordinating her forces, wasn't about to let the rogue faction take control. Orbital bombardment was ordered, and the sky above began to light up with intense energy. Massive airstrikes targeted the rogue Zorathian positions, shaking the ground beneath them. Explosions rocked the battlefield as enemy positions were blasted apart, but the rogue soldiers remained relentless, cloaking in and out of visibility, making them difficult targets. The apex predator, now fully enraged, had become an unstoppable force. It was no longer just an animal. It was a weapon. It tore through the rogue Zorathians with wild abandon, slashing through their soldiers and cybernetic reinforcements. The rogue Zorathians had never expected the creature to turn on them so quickly, and their plans were falling apart fast. Ethan, moving quickly across the battlefield, took advantage of the chaos. He used the momentary confusion caused by the orbital bombardment to get closer to the beast. He knew that if he didn't act fast, the creature would become even more uncontrollable, and everyone, including him, would be at risk. He dove forward, using his momentum to slide under the predator's massive claws as it attempted to swipe at him. With a quick turn, Ethan rose to his feet and launched himself at the creature. This time, however, it wasn't just about taming the beast. It was about survival. The rogue Zorathians, their cloaking devices flickering on and off as they reappeared, fired their weapons indiscriminately. Ethan dodged a blast that would have ripped through him, the heat of the shot singing his side. The pain was sharp, but he didn't slow down. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, pushing him to keep moving. He reached the apex predator in a flash. Grabbing hold of the creature's massive arm, Ethan used all his strength to force it away from the incoming barrage of laser fire. The creature, still confused and enraged, roared, but Ethan could see it was starting to recognize him again. His calm presence, his ability to connect with the beast, was the only thing standing between the apex predator and total destruction. Lyra, still commanding her forces, was having her own fight with the rogue faction. She coordinated a series of airstrikes, raining destruction on the rogue Zorathians' hidden positions, but their cloaking devices made it almost impossible to pinpoint their exact locations. The battlefield was a blur of fire, smoke, and flashing lights. The chaos escalated as rogue Zorathian robots began advancing from the shadows, their weapons targeting both the apex predator and Ethan. Explosions rocked the arena as the Zorathians fought back against their own kind. The once controlled battlefield was now a full-scale war zone, and no one knew who would come out victorious. In the midst of all this destruction, Ethan's mind was focused solely on survival. He had to keep the apex predator from going rogue again. He had to find a way to get it under control before it killed everyone in sight. Lyra's voice crackled through his comlink. "Ethan, we need to contain the creature. Do whatever you can." Ethan nodded, though she couldn't see him. He was in the heart of the chaos now, and the creature's wild thrashing made it almost impossible to get close. He knew he had to move fast. If the rogue faction had tampered with the beast's mind, it was only a matter of time before it would turn on him too. Using a dangerous move, Ethan managed to subdue the beast's erratic behavior with a quick move, wrapping his arms around its neck and using his legs to pin it to the ground. He whispered softly, a series of words only the beast could understand. The creature's wild movements began to slow, and finally, with a low growl, it relaxed. The rogue faction, still fighting on all sides, began to retreat. Lyra's forces had regrouped, pushing back the enemy, but Ethan knew the fight was far from over. The battle wasn't won yet. It was a test of survival, and the war for control of the apex predator had only just begun. The Zorathians were speechless. Lyra stood frozen, staring at Ethan. The human had done what they thought was impossible. He had tamed the beast, defeated their robots, and proven that humans were far more capable than they had ever imagined. Ethan had shown them all. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The battlefield was a chaotic mess. Explosions filled the air, and the ground shook under the weight of the fierce battle between the loyal Zorathians, the rogue faction, and the apex predator. Ethan was in the thick of it, his body bruised and bloodied from the constant struggle. He was no longer just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something deeper now. His thoughts constantly drifted to one person, Bonner, his closest friend and fellow soldier. They had been through countless missions together. They shared jokes, stories, and their hopes of someday leaving the war behind. Bonner was more than a comrade. He was like family to Ethan. They had always had each other's backs, through thick and thin. But now, with the chaos of battle surrounding them, Ethan was about to lose his friend forever. It happened quickly, too quickly for Ethan to process. A rogue AI-controlled drone swooped down from the sky, its laser targeting system locking in on Bonner. The drone fired without hesitation, the beam cutting through the air with a sharp, deadly precision. Ethan turned just in time to see the light flash across Bonner's face. The explosion that followed was violent, and in a matter of seconds, Bonner was gone. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, staring at the place where his friend had fallen. The loud sounds of battle around him seemed to fade away, and all that remained was the image of Bonner's last moments. His breath caught in his throat, a wave of grief crashing over him. The loss hit harder than anything he had ever experienced. It was like a piece of him had been ripped away. The only thing that remained in his heart was rage, a burning need to avenge his friend's death. His fists clenched tightly, his jaw set with determination. He couldn't afford to be distracted. The battle was still ongoing, and his allies were depending on him. But the pain of losing Bonner weighed heavily on him, fueling his resolve. His heart raced with fury, and he could feel his body moving almost on instinct. He needed to finish this, not just for himself but for Bonner. Lyra, witnessing the transformation in Ethan, couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and sorrow. She had always viewed humans as simply practical beings, calculating and efficient. But watching Ethan now, she began to see something more, something raw and powerful that the aliens could never understand. Humans had emotions, deep, uncontrollable emotions, and it was these emotions that gave them a strength that even the most advanced alien technologies couldn't replicate. As Ethan fought on, his anger driving him forward, Lyra found herself drawn to him. She had always admired his tenacity and resourcefulness, but now she saw that his heart and soul were intertwined with the very battle they fought. He wasn't just fighting to win. He was fighting for the people he loved, the people he cared for, the people he had sacrificed for in the past. This bond of love, loyalty, and sacrifice was something Lyra had never fully understood until now. She found herself thinking back to her own life, her own people. The Zorethians, for all their technology and cold efficiency, didn't experience emotions the way humans did. They didn't have the same sense of attachment. Their relationships were transactional, based on logic and necessity, not love and loyalty. As she watched Ethan fight with such fury and passion, she realized that humans were driven by something far stronger than cold calculation. They were driven by the heart. The battle raged on as the rogue Zorethian faction continued to make its last stand. They had the upper hand in terms of advanced technology, but Ethan's underdog spirit was starting to turn the tide. With every move he made, every strike he landed, he was chipping away at the enemy's advantage. His knowledge of the battlefield, his experience with close combat, and his unwavering determination were proving to be more effective than any high-tech weapon or shield. Ethan was no longer just a soldier. He had become a symbol of everything humanity stood for: resilience, sacrifice, and love. The rogue Zorethians were losing ground, their once perfect strategy faltering as they underestimated the strength of the human spirit. Ethan's calm, calculated moves seemed to defy the odds. He avoided every trap they set, and with every blow, he dismantled their technology piece by piece. In a bold final move, Ethan and Lyra launched a coordinated attack against the rogue faction's main command center. Ethan knew their leader was hiding deep inside, controlling the drones and robots, pushing them to fight with reckless abandon. Lyra, knowing that Ethan was the only one who could stop this madness, gave him a signal to go in. With a fierce battle cry, Ethan stormed the command center. Inside, he faced the rogue leader, a Zorethian who had betrayed his own people. The leader, a cold, calculating individual, sneered at Ethan's approach. He was surrounded by a wall of technology, with screens and controls that allowed him to direct the drones and robots with ease. But Ethan wasn't intimidated. He wasn't afraid of the technology. He knew what the leader didn't understand, that humans were more than just machines. The battle between Ethan and the rogue leader was fierce. The Zorathian used his tech to try and overpower Ethan, launching drones and energy blasts in quick succession. But Ethan was faster, more agile. He dodged and weaved through the barrage of energy, closing the gap between them with each passing second. Finally, with a powerful leap, he disarmed the leader and brought him to his knees. As the leader's systems shut down, the battlefield around them fell silent. The rogue faction's attack had ended, their forces defeated. Ethan stood over the fallen leader, breathing heavily, his fists still clenched in anger. The battle was won, but the cost was great. Bonner's death weighed heavily on him, and as he looked at the devastation around him, he knew there was no turning back from what he had just lost. Lyra approached, her eyes filled with both admiration and sorrow. She could see the depth of Ethan's pain. For the first time, she understood the true power of human emotions, the strength they carried, the drive they fueled. She placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, offering him a moment of comfort. He didn't speak at first, his thoughts still on Bonner, but then he turned to face Lyra. "I couldn't save him," Ethan said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "But I made sure his death wasn't in vain." Lyra nodded, her heart heavy. "You didn't just fight for him, Ethan. You fought for all of us." As the dust began to settle, Lyra realized that she had learned something crucial. The human spirit, its emotions, its connections, and its capacity for sacrifice, had made all the difference. While the Zorathians had superior technology, it was humanity's heart that had led them to victory. Ethan's emotions, his love for his friends, and his loyalty were more powerful than any machine or weapon. And in the end, it was that power, the power of the human heart, that saved them all. The war was far from over, but in this moment, Ethan's victory over the rogue Zorathians was not just a triumph of battle, it was a triumph of the human soul. The final battle was shaping up to be the most intense one yet. Ethan, Lyra, and the apex predator stood on the front lines, ready to face the rogue Zorathians and their AI overlords. The air crackled with tension as the enemy forces closed in, their weapons aimed directly at them. Despite their technological superiority, the humans were undeterred. Ethan's eyes were focused, his mind clear. The grief of losing Bonner still weighed on him, but now it fueled his desire for victory. He was fighting not just for revenge, but for something far more important, the future of humanity. Lyra stood beside him, her expression determined. She had seen firsthand how the humans could overcome seemingly impossible odds. Despite the overwhelming power of the rogue faction's technology, she had learned that it was human spirit, human emotions, that could change the tide of battle. Lyra had always been a believer in logic and reason, but now, watching Ethan, she understood something deeper. Humans didn't just fight with their weapons, they fought with their hearts. The apex predator, once a wild and untamed force, was now under Ethan's control. The beast, having formed a unique bond with Ethan, growled low in its throat, sensing the impending danger. It was no longer just a mindless predator. It had become an ally, a partner in their fight. Ethan's ability to connect with the creature on a deeper level, to understand its instincts and communicate without words, had turned the tide. The apex predator's loyalty was now unquestionable, and it stood at Ethan's side, ready to strike when called upon. The rogue faction's AI overlords were watching from above, their cold, calculating minds analyzing every move the humans made. But what they didn't understand was that humans weren't just fighting with logic or tactics, they were fighting with something more powerful. They were fighting with their will, their emotions, and their unbreakable spirit. As the battle commenced, Ethan and Lyra worked in perfect harmony, coordinating their attacks with military precision. Lyra, now fully trusting Ethan's instincts, directed airstrikes while Ethan led the charge on the ground. The apex predator, moving with deadly grace, followed Ethan's commands, taking down enemies with unmatched ferocity. The rogue Zorathians, despite their advanced weapons and technology, found themselves struggling to match the humans' resilience and resourcefulness. In the heat of the battle, Ethan found himself face to face with the leader of the rogue faction. The Zorathian leader, once confident in the superiority of their technology, now appeared shaken. Ethan's fury was palpable, and it only grew with every strike he landed. The rogue leader tried to fight back, using every weapon at his disposal, but Ethan was too fast, too determined. The human spirit was unstoppable, and no matter how much technology the Zorathians threw at him, it could not break Ethan's will. The apex predator, sensing the leader's vulnerability, lunged forward, pinning the rogue Zorathian to the ground. With a swift move, Ethan stepped forward, his hand outstretched. The leader, looking up in desperation, could see the raw power in Ethan's eyes, a power that wasn't derived from machines, but from something far more dangerous, the human will to survive, to protect, and to fight for what was right. The final blow came quickly. Ethan, with all the strength and rage of a man who had lost everything, delivered a decisive strike. The rogue leader, once so sure of his control over the machines, now lay defeated, his empire of technology crumbling around him. The AI overlords, witnessing their leader's downfall, faltered. Without their human adversary to control, their systems began to shut down, one by one. With the leader gone and the AI systems collapsing, the rogue Zorathian forces began to fall apart. The once unstoppable army now seemed helpless in the face of the human onslaught. The apex predator, with Ethan guiding it, took down the remaining enemies with unmatched precision. The battle was won, but it had come at a great cost. The war was over, but Ethan knew that humanity's victory had come not from the power of machines, but from the strength of human emotion, connection, and sacrifice. As the battlefield fell silent, Lyra approached Ethan, her expression filled with both admiration and something more, a deep respect for the human spirit. She had seen the worst of humanity, their flaws, their violence, and their destructive tendencies. But in this moment, she saw something different. She saw the power of human compassion, the strength of their bonds, and the extraordinary depth of their emotions. Ethan stood tall, his face streaked with blood and dirt, but his eyes shone with a quiet pride. The victory was theirs, but the true reward wasn't just in defeating the enemy. It was in proving that humanity had something no alien race could ever replicate. Lyra stood beside him, her heart heavy with both the weight of their losses and the realization of just how much she had learned from the humans. "You were right," Lyra said softly, her voice filled with a mix of awe and understanding. "You don't have the technology of the Zorathians, but you have something much stronger. You have heart." Ethan looked at her, his gaze steady. "Heart and spirit, Lyra. It's what makes us who we are. And that's what will keep us strong, no matter what comes next." Lyra smiled, her eyes glinting with a newfound respect for humanity. "You've earned a place with us, Ethan. I want you on our team. We have a lot of missions ahead, and I can't think of anyone better to join us." Ethan felt a surge of pride at her words, but there was something more, something deeper. He had come a long way since the first time he'd met Lyra. Back then, he was just a soldier doing his duty. But now he realized that his connection with Lyra had become something more than just professional respect. There was an unspoken bond between them, one that neither of them had fully acknowledged yet, but both felt deeply. He looked up at the stars, a quiet sense of hope filling his heart. Humanity's place in the universe had just been secured. They had proven themselves, not just through their strength, but through their heart. And as Ethan stood there, surrounded by the allies he had fought alongside, he knew that humanity had a bright future ahead. No matter the challenges, no matter the obstacles, they would face them with the same spirit that had won this victory. Lyra's words echoed in his mind. "You have heart." And with that, Ethan knew that humanity's true power wasn't just in their technology or their weapons. It was in the love, loyalty, and sacrifice they were capable of. These were the things that would define them, that would shape their future in the stars. As Ethan looked at Lyra, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. With the apex predator by their side and the strength of human spirit to guide them, the universe was theirs for the taking. And in the quiet moments that followed, as the battle dust settled, Ethan couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning of humanity's story.